It's amazing how much D&D spells have evolved throughout D&D's history. What are you talking about? My beloved wizard spells haven't changed at all. If we go all the way back to 1st edition, you weren't even called wizards, instead just the vague term of magic users, and you were only one of 4 playable classes. And were sorcerers one of those 4 options?
What the hell's a sorcerer?
Take that, you stupid spellcasting posers.
Ah, yes. Speaking of spells, it seems you've got a bit of a downgrade compared to what I have access to. I can cast Bigby's Crushing Hand.
You mean floating hand, right?
I meant exactly what I said. A hand the size of an ogre that can grab, squeeze, and crush the life out of any creature.
That's incredible. What other spells do you have at your disposal?
Well, who could forget the cantrip Yawn? And if the target fails a magic save, they yawn and become more susceptible to the sleep spell.
That doesn't quite seem up to the same level as your previous spell.
Well then, what about Sticks to Snakes, turning sticks?
Let me guess. Into snakes. I think I've heard enough. Did they at least clean up some of this ridiculousness in 2nd edition? Well, no actually, because we got even more obscure. That can't be possible. The perfect starting point is the spell there, not there. What? It's a wild magic spell that creates random fluctuations in the probabilities of existence in a specified area. So what does that actually look like? Essentially, the state of existence for any object or creature within this zone changes randomly for each viewer, so something that is temporarily visible for me might not be visible for you, and this could change multiple times throughout the course of a combat encounter. My brain hurts. Well then, perhaps a ride on my airboat will calm your mind. And what do you mean by airboat? It's just another spell of mine that allows me to transform a cloud into a vehicle of transportation. I can't tell if any of these spells are actually useful. You haven't even heard the worst of it. And what are you meant to be? Isn't it obvious? An illusionist. So 2nd edition introduced class groupings of sorts, which helped categorize the different types of classes you could play as. So the newly introduced illusionist and mage fit under the wizard category. So what? They're like a kid's magician? Could a kid's magician summon a fetish spirit? I'd really fucking hope not. Well, if that doesn't do it for you, I could give you the Eye of the Tiger, conjure up some turtle soup, or cast Due North. And what does Due North do? It allows me to determine which way true north is. Alrighty, I think I've had enough of this conversation as well. When did things start looking like current D&D? We calmed things down a hell of a lot and cleared out some of the ridiculousness from our predecessors. Except for Lam's finger darts. Come again? It's a spell that allows me to shoot off my fingers like little missiles at any target I specify. Of course that's what it does. And if you went down the red wizard route of things, you could cast the spell Flensing, which would peel the flesh of all creatures within a zone for 4 rounds like a cheese grater. Intriguing. Tell me more. I think that's enough about red wizards for now. Can see how excited you're getting. How about you explain to him what happened to the illusionist? Well, there's really not much to say. What happened was necessary. They no longer exist. 3rd edition was responsible for shaping what the majority of modern D&D looks like, but we had the benefits of prestige classes. And what exactly is a prestige class? Oh my dear sweet boy, how have they kept you from me? Prestige classes were essentially subclasses that you could optionally opt into once you unlocked a certain prerequisite for that prestige class. Majority of the time, this took the form of dedicating a certain number of class levels in a base class. Okay, so how many options did you have for these prestige classes? 712 to be exact. I think I just had an aneurysm. It is pretty overwhelming, but just to name a few of my favorites, you could become a Dragon Lord, a Metamind, a Lord of the Tides, a Sand Shaper. I want to become all of them. Well, you still can. Just come play a few sessions with me. Get your addictive talons away from my player, you fiend. Well, it didn't sound all that bad. That's exactly what 3rd edition wants you to think. Okay, well, what about 4th edition? Hush. We don't say those words out loud.
Oh, but come on, guys, it really meant well.
If you know what's good for you, 4th edition, you'll stay buried like season 7 and 8 of Game of Thrones.
Don't you dare
Talk to my edition like that. No, we're not doing this right now. I'm in the middle of something. Look, if you've got a problem with me, say it to my face. Fine. Nobody likes you. There's a reason people only play 3.5 or 5th edition. What about me? Oh, great. Now look what you've done, 4th edition. As far as I'm concerned, the only complicated thing about 2nd edition is trying to keep track of all of my world notes and NPCs. Not to mention the number of maps and physical character sheets me and my players have to try and keep track of. Paper isn't cheap, you know. Yes, it is. But if technology was just a bit more advanced for the both of you, I think you would have really loved World Anvil. What's a World Anvil? It's an all-in-one campaign manager that instantaneously allows you to access stat blocks and character sheets for over 45 RPG systems.
There's other RPG systems?
There's actually hundreds. And World Anvil strives to make the management of these systems and your games as easy as possible, with the ability to quickly create session notes, lore, NPCs, timelines, and even digital maps.
So just a digital version of what we've already created?
Well, with these maps, they're completely interactive online, allowing your players to pan around and read descriptions on various locations, or even click off to link dungeons and submaps. They even have the option to add pins for points of interest.
I'm not so sure I'm following all this clicking terminology.
Not to fret, my wizened friend. They even offer templates for all these key features to help get you started. So there's never been a better time to jump online to worldanvil.com and use the code ARLENTRIC at checkout to receive 51% off any yearly membership. So get out there and world build.
Well, care to explain what the hell that was?
It's much easier not to.
Fair enough. So what about the other classes?
Well, it's a little bit more complicated because not all of them actually existed in previous editions, but...
Hey dude, what's up? Like our other magic casting counterparts, we too have survived every iteration of D&D, except for some reason all the way back in 1st edition, druids and monks were considered cleric subclasses, so there's that.
I mean, I can kind of see the relatability between a cleric and a druid, but a monk?
It was a very different time, my dude. A better time. Except for the whole satanic panic thing.
Right. And did you also have...
Completely unhinged spells? Of course. With a bit of unholy water, I could cast the opposite of regenerate, and essentially any limb that I touched, I could turn to dust with wither.
Well, that settles it. I think I want to play 1st edition.
My guy, you've heard nothing yet. At 2nd level in 2nd edition, I can cast Light and Load, which...
Please don't tell me that's a sex thing.
No! What is wrong with you?
Well, it's just...
Moving right along, at 6th level we can touch a creature and cast Break Limb.
I actually don't think you need to explain that one to me. It's pretty straightforward.
Druids even got their own dedicated class in 2nd edition under the Priest category, so we too have our own deranged spells.
Let me guess. Tree kissing?
A missed opportunity by the sound of things. Instead, we can just create things like puffballs.
I'm gonna need a bit more clarification.
It allows us to transform a mushroom, truffle, or toadstool into a fungus-based grenade that we can hurl at our enemies.
Your Honor, I love him.
Well, if you like that, perhaps you'd like to climb aboard my tree steed, which is another spell I can cast, which transforms a log, plank, or similar piece of wood into a rideable mount as it sprouts out little legs.
Where's this creativity in modern D&D? Well, look, having several thousand spells to try and keep on top of and pick became a bit monotonous. Not to mention, having to try and keep all of these spells balanced for players was next to impossible, so it had to be culled down significantly.
Where's the fun in that?
So did monks get their own class in 2nd edition as well?
Not at all. They just got completely removed.
I mean, fair enough. What's the point in even playing a non-spellcaster?
You can say that again.
On top of all this, I was introduced in this version of D&D as a rogue type. Rogue? Well, I guess you do fit the profile of being a sly, cunning, and secretive type. Did you get your own unique spells as well? Not necessarily, because I too just got access to the wizard grouping of spells, but it did allow me to cast things like Enter Dream, so I could target a creature and when they're in their imaginative slumber space, I could enter their dream and just do whatever the fuck I want. I'm kinda happy you can't do that anymore.
I can't do that anymore? What's the point in even existing?
To attempt to fornicate with anything that moves?
Well, thank God, at least that's still consistent.
So, what happened with all of these classes in 3rd edition? As already alluded to, 3rd edition shaped the bulk of what modern D&D looks like, as the spellcasters took the form of bards, wizards, clerics, druids, and sorcerers. Scum. The fuck's your problem? Please ignore him. In 3.5 edition, warlocks were also added into the mix, thus completing the full repertoire of spellcasters that we have available in 5th edition, but they still had access to prestige classes. So would I be right in assuming that spells haven't changed that drastically between 3rd and 5th edition? That is where you'd be horribly mistaken, my child, because in 3rd edition I had access to all of my pacts, like Death Pact, which could quite literally prevent death itself. That's kind of mid in the grand scheme of things. Fine then, how about my greater consumptive field? Anything within the radius that's reduced to 9 hit points or fewer has to roll a death saving throw, and if they fail, they permanently die and I suck in their life essence, gaining hit points and strength modifiers. Yeah, that's a little bit better. And I have access to Steel Dance, which essentially allows me to transform 2 daggers into short swords that turn into dancing or spiritual weapons that fight for me. I mean, it's cute. And I have the ability to dance for a minute straight, which will reveal the exact direction of any individual I'm looking for. And that is way more bard-coded. In 3rd edition, I can make roses fall from the sky in a designated area, and it deals damage temporarily to people's wisdom score. And if that score is reduced to 0, they become unconscious and have terrifying nightmares. How pleasant. And then I can cast Drown on them to fill their lungs with water. Okay, you terrify me. And I could stick things together with a stick spell. Does that work like sovereign glue? Oh heavens no, a light breeze could separate these two things. Well then, it sounds fucking pointless. Well, what about permanency then? That was one of the coolest things to exist in the first 3 editions of D&D, but it never seemed to make it to 5th edition. And what did permanency do? At a great personal cost of experience and exhaustion, you could make the effects of some spells permanent, like comprehend languages, detect magic, or even enlarge. That might be the best one yet. And don't forget about us, we can Eldritch Blast. That's still all you do. Well, thank fuck for that. Okay, so with that all in mind, what about 4th?
We don't talk about 4th edition.
Right, my apologies. And thus, that returns us to the modern day, where we're kind of between 2 versions at the moment, and between the 2 of them, there hasn't been too many drastic changes to spellcasters. Outside of subclasses now being only available at level 3, right? Yes, except for that. And of course, some fairly big changes to druids, some minor ones to clerics, sorcerers, and bards, and some lackluster ones to warlocks and wizards. Well, yes, those as well. Not to mention, the new Conjure Minor Elementals is terrifyingly broken. There's always going to be some small things that slip through the cracks. And rangers still suck. Finally, something we can agree on.